Welcome to Duality Gamecast. Today's episode, Steam Torpedo.
Welcome to Duality Gamecast. I'm Matt.
And I'm William.
Today we're reviewing Steam Torpedo, First Contact from Yellow.
Steam Torpedo is an underwater submarine combat game where your goal is to either destroy your opponent's control room or suffocate all of their crew members. Plays play back and forth between players, so let's just go through one turn and show you how it works. At the beginning of your turn, the first thing you do is you have to pay 1 oxygen. Now, every tile on here can have oxygen tokens on it. You just have to take 1 off to represent oxygen used by your crew. If you don't have any oxygen tokens left, your crew suffocates and you lose. Then you ready all of your used crew members. Next, you maneuver. You get to move one of the submarines, 1 space for each engine compartment you have manned. I have 2 manned engine compartments, so I can move my submarine once or twice, and the other submarine 2, so for a total of 2 movement. Then I'm allowed to take actions. Each crew member is allowed to take 1 action. So let's see, what's some actions I can take here? I can... this one looks kind of good. This one right here is the 84mm Orwell cannon. That one seems good. What it does is it has a long-range attack, and it hits the front section from my rear section. So it is going to shoot the front section of this submarine, which is right here, from my rear. So it's perfect. We're lined up. To activate this, I flip over the character and move it 1 space back towards the control room. Then I count damage. This has 2 red marks on it. It does 2 damage to the front section of your opponent's ship. Now my opponent has an armored section, which are these green sections here, and it's manned, so it reduces the damage by 1. So I deal 1 damage to them. The opponent gets to pick where it goes, so they can choose to either just put it on any one of these gear symbols here, or if they want to, they can take one of their oxygens and flip it over to a damage too. It also counts as damage. He's going to put it on this welding station because it has a special ability that helps him out. You continue taking actions like this until all 5 of your people have used or you're happy with what you've done. Then you pass. A couple of caveats of this is some tiles actually have abilities that work just if there's crew in them, and your captain gets an extra movement either before or after their action. So your captain can move somewhere and then activate it, or activate something and move afterwards. Again, you play until one ship's control room is destroyed, or they're out of oxygen, and all their players suffocate.
Steam Torpedo, the constructible, expandable, 2-player steampunk dueling game from Yellow. William, talk to me about how this game plays.
Unique, different. It feels like it's a cross of a bunch of genres. I definitely get a heavy LCG feel from this. We've only gotten 1 expansion for it, but it greatly changes how the game works. Building your submarine seems like it's a huge deal. At the same time, it has kind of a worker placement action going on there. But at its heart, I feel like this is a card game. That's how I just feel about it. It feels like an LCG to me. It has some tactical movement, but not enough that you need a board or anything for it. It's just purely how many spaces you are away from your opponent. It has the construction elements to it, which is cool. It has a little bit of worker movement because you're having to move your guys around to activate things. But that's usually played, usually you're trying to get a combo and you have a plan to start with. So it's not like you're running a worker back and forth across your ship typically. Usually you're running them to one location and then they're activating it and then they fall back and next turn they have to walk back to it again and then activate the following turn. So it has kind of when you get going, it has this old naval battle feeling to it where there's kind of slow motion going on because when you do something, your people have to move out of that area. And it makes it take an extra turn. But at the same side of that, everyone's control room can attack in every direction the things adjacent to them. So the first round, you're not allowed to make attacks, you're not allowed to take actions in that way. But early on in the game, if someone doesn't have deck construction is a huge deal in this. If someone doesn't have something built right, in 2 rounds in, you can just annihilate somebody. Because you just get up on them, if all your guys are in the control room, you're shooting them. You're shooting them a lot. Because there's no problem with taking double actions or multiple actions on the same thing as long as you have the guys there to do it. And there's some finagliness with some of the rules. There's 20 starting tiles at the beginning of the game. Each submarine needs 10. And one of the 20 starting tiles, when you have to play without the gate, it's called Telescoping Shaft. And what it does is it moves one of your sailors from there to your opponent's ship. And that is all it tells you. there's no explanation in the rulebooks, no explanation on the card. Matt's my designated rule looker-upper. He had to spend some time finding it all, and I know we were quite frustrated with it, so that came up right away, and there was no explanation for it, which seemed a little funny with such a... It's like you get a deck of cards with 20 cards in it, and one of them has an odd rule that doesn't work with anything else, and there's no explanation in the core rulebook. This isn't like an expansion or something they tacked on afterwards. This is a base card. But everything else in it completely made sense. It has two types of combat, close range and long range. Close range, you can shoot people in your space or one space away. Long range, you have to be at least 2 spaces away. So that's why they made the movement that you can move other people's ships, because you can't move outside of the 5 areas here between the 2 areas. So if you're here, if you're this guy and you want to move 1 space away, you actually, to signify that, you move the other ship 1 space away. When you move into someone's space, sides matter, because you shoot out of your left or your right. And in order to move, you have to actually maneuver out and back around to get behind them, so that's kind of interesting. There's a lot of neat mechanics going on here. And it seems like that with expansions, there can be some cool stuff that shows up.
Right. Yeah, I love it's an elegant solution to have a small, essentially card, feels like you said a card game, but it's tiles. But so you have a small number of components and you're playing in a small area. So they came up with a real elegant way to track, range and position and make that matter. Because it matters in so many ways. It matters in how your guns, which way your guns are facing, because some shoot only in certain directions. It matters whether they're a short-range gun or a long-range gun. And it also matters with your armor compartments.
Yes.
Which if you don't take that into consideration when you're constructing your sub, could be disastrous. Speaking from experience. The telescopic shaft, which there's no rules for in the rule book that explain what that does, is it puts a person from your crew onto the other submarine, and that actually shuts down that compartment, which could be a very effective strategy. And I think in the expansion, there was one more card that put guys on their compartment.
Yeah, I think it might have been.
And the expansion came with no rule book at all. We had to go online and find an official FAQ. Other concern is the rulebook tells you an initial, hey, it's your first game, set up like this, right? And how to play. And then from there, it's really vague on how you're supposed to play. You had to go online. I had to go online and find official tournament rules that clarify sub-construction and play. Because there's a huge difference between doing everything random and building your sub.
Well, and it tells you both. That's what the real thing. It wasn't even like it was vague. It told you, one sentence told you set up and build your ship the way you want it. And the next paragraph says, now randomly place out your tiles back to back. So that was, because I know we were arguing when we were playing, no, it's this way. I'm like, no, I ran it this way. And then we realized, we're looking at different sides of the same piece of paper and they tell us different directions.
Right. And even though you get to construct your subs, which is really cool, once you play the initial game, the difference between choosing how those tiles get laid out and just randomly throwing them is huge. Because you have these, in particular because of your armor. We did a random one with constructed subs, and my armor got distributed all weird. And I think that lent itself to the not broken, but potentially abusive tactic you mentioned of having all your crewmen sit in the control room and just activate them all to fire that control room gun over and over again. Which, if there's no armor for that other sub, you're just brutalizing them. And I don't know if we mentioned it earlier, but once you max out the damage in one area, you flip that over, it's useless, can't get it back or anything. And that becomes a huge deal. Damage, losing compartments, then obviously your sub's not working as effectively as it should. If it was an armor compartment, that's doubles the problems you have. Plus, most of the time you're losing oxygen when those compartments are taking damage. So, so much potential. I just feel like they didn't. The rulebook wasn't well thought out. This game clearly wants to be a long-term constructible game where they're going to put out more stuff and people can get creative and tactical with building their subs. And the rulebook was not built to support that. So that was a failure in my opinion. Let's talk about the component quality and the art.
Well, I like the component quality in this. I mean, there's 10 tiles for each player, and a unique submarine for each player, and then a bunch of little oxygen tokens, which are microscopic. These could have been a little bit. I mean, they're small because they don't want to take a bunch of game space, but a little bit bigger might have been made them easier to handle. And then the 5-player token or the crew tokens, which one side is blank, so they've been tapped or used, and one side has their face on it. Overall, I'm happy. The chit quality is good. The little standees look nice. This is a submarine. I can tell which way it is. I can tell which way it's facing because facing matters. And basically what it is there's like 5 different colors to represent the 5 different kinds of rooms. Maybe it's 4. Maybe it's 4 different colors. And then basically, so like there's a gray room, which is generic, a blue room, which is supposed to be like a special researched thing. Green rooms, which are always armor. So anytime you have anybody in an armor room, it gives 1 armor to that portion of your ship. Black rooms, which are the engine rooms.
Or yellow,
yeah, black and yellow. And they have, if you have a guy in there, you get extra movement. So they added some color coding, and blue and gray rooms don't seem to have any special rules associated with their color, but I'm assuming down the line there could be something along with that. It's more thematic right now with how they're different. It's easy to see. I never had there's no visual problems at all. The game, like how you move around and how things connect. So you can move diagonally or orthogonally, doesn't matter. And there's no like doorways you have to follow or paths. So everything's basically, there's a little 10x5 grid. Everything's really clear. You can see what other people have. It's easy to see their damage they do, everything. I'm very happy with the graphic design, the really basic, like showing how weapons and stuff attack. They're all symbol based. And it's not symbol stuff that you have to worry about because there's only like 3 symbols they use. It's basically, is it short or long range and what areas it hits and where it shoots from. So I'm very happy with art components for what this is, which is, like I said, to me, it's a card game. They upgraded them to tiles from cards.
Yeah, I'm happy with the manufactured quality for sure. I love the thick tiles. The little standees are cool. The art, I don't know. It's sort of an alternate history or possibly steampunky theme, and I don't know that the art really goes overboard with conveying that. So maybe they could have zhuzhed that up a little bit more. But it's cool. It works. It communicates. I love, your radio control shark's got a big robot shark on it. I'm satisfied with that and very happy with just the raw quality of all the components. The biggest quality issue I have was with the rulebook. Really.
Yes.
This is a game that I think existed in Europe for a couple years before it was debuted at the Gamma trade show for American release this last year. That's where we first heard about it, and I kind of got excited. So I'm pretty confident they're going to be supporting this and more expansions. I think I've heard talk that there's new alternate crew members, like first mates and things like that, which I think could make a lot of fun too. And the constructability part is what really intrigues me about it. So a lot of potential with this, and totally satisfied with the art and component quality.
All right, I'm going to go with a like it on this. I like the theme. We played it once. I instantly went and bought an expansion for it because I was excited. It was fun. And after we played it a few more times, I realized there was some mechanical aspects to it. When you're building your submarine, you have armor in certain places. You have certain things built certain ways that you can't really have a lot of divergent strategies. At least not with the core cards in the first expansion. So for that, I can't give it a love it or a must buy, even though I enjoy the theme and I'm really excited to see what comes next. I'm going to go with a like it.
Team Torpedo really got me excited when I first heard about it. It's a dueling game with constructability and not the standard, collectible card format. Plus, it's got this cool alt history or steampunky look to it. Submarines, you don't see a lot of game space with submarine themes, with a little worker placement sprinkled in there. So I was really excited, and I enjoyed playing it. I just feel like they were really clumsy with the rule book, and they weren't looking ahead to expanding this and emphasizing constructability and maybe official or tournament play when they made this rule book. Could be partly because, obviously it's an import. So I'm going to go with a like it for right now. I'm going to wait and see what additional expansions roll out. And this could be one where you learn to love it. Nautical themes are not a theme you see a lot in board games these days, particularly submarine games. Tell me a nautical themed game that you play or have played that you really enjoyed. Leave it in the comments below because we're looking for it. We want to play it. Thank you to all these people for helping out, and click on me to subscribe.
No, Matt, no, I mean, we're recording right now, man. You probably should say something.